Hi, welcome to Hope in the Light of Suicide. I'm Tammy White. I'm the founder of the Bobby White Foundation.
Good morning. I'm Bonni Snyder, your co-host.
Well, we're back in the studio after a week off because you had COVID.
You know, and and I think about that as hilarious because, it was interesting. It was one of those things where still 2 weeks ago, Saturday, no, it was Friday night, it was usually, this thing where I hang out with the neighbors. And we were all, sitting by the pool and, having a couple of drinks. And, typically on a Friday night it is, okay, so where are we going to go eat? We'll usually go out and eat something on a Friday. And none of us really wanted to go out anywhere because it's like, we both, four of us, it's my two neighbors, husband and wife, and then my neighbor next door to me, and then it's four of us. We hang out a lot together. But anyway, we all had a couple of, adult beverages, as we say. And so none of us were like, nobody's going to drive, who kind of talking about, well, we'll get, my neighbor's son, he's 24, I think it is, 23, 24. We'll get him to drive, and we're like, well, let's Uber somewhere. We're like, no, let's just order food out. Anyway, long story short, I really wasn't feeling food. It's like, I'm not really hungry, which is like unusual. When it's Friday, we're hanging out. The ritual, we eat. Anyway, I walked across the lawn to my house, crawled in my bed, and between earlier, late Friday night, early Saturday morning, it was like, bam, ton of bricks. I was feverish, the chills, I was hot, sore throat and everything like that. And I was like, what in the deuce is going on here? So I just thought it was a really bad summer flu. Mm-hmm. And then, so it was all day Saturday. So I stayed in bed all day Saturday. So I just felt horrid. And then Sunday, same thing, fever, chills, all sorts. And I just felt horrid. So Monday, I'm like, all right, this is going to the third. So I call my primary care doctor, as right now I'm a veteran, so call the VA, talk to a nurse kind of thing. And I was kind of struck when she was like, do you have an at-home COVID test? An at-home COVID test. And I'm thinking, that was 3 years ago. Like, nobody, I was like, COVID? I think that was over. So I was like, yeah, I think so. So I, go into the kitchen, and she was like, okay, I'm going to walk you through this. And she was, and I'm, talk to you for a little bit. Did I wait 20 minutes for the results?
Mine was faster than that.
Yeah, it says here, it's rapid, but, you start seeing results before the 20 minutes, but, getting accurate results, you can wait 20 minutes. So I'm, going through the motions, doing all this, do the swab and whatnot. So she's asking me questions, And it's about 20 minutes into our conversation. She goes, how many lines do you see? And I was like, there's 2 lines. She was like, and I knew what it meant. I was like, I'm sitting there thinking like, wow, there are 2 lines. And we're talking a deep purple. It was, there was no mistake in, what this was. So anyway, she looks at me, she goes, congratulations, you have COVID. Of course, I almost on the phone to her said, what the fill in the blank? What do you mean? So I'm like, okay, so, quarantine. So she's like, I've got to go to the emergency room. She go to the emergency room. She's like, yeah, some medication. She wanted to ask me, ask them for this medication and have them, run a test. So I go to the ER, and I was like, I'm only here because the nurse on the phone said I had to be here. And long story short, the doctor at the emergency room, they were like, I'm not going to run another test. If you run a test at home, that test is accurate. It really doesn't make any sense for me to run another test. And she's like, just do, self-care, or supportive care is what they call it. Push the fluids, get some rest, stay away from everybody and whatnot. And I'm like, okay. And she was like, and I'm not charging you for this visit. And I'm looking at her like, what? She's like, I didn't do anything. She was like, it's like, I didn't do anything. I was like, I had a conversation with you, and I'm not, and which I thought was, so I was like, I respect,
Well, yeah, because
usually you walk in the door and it's like, bam, you're charged right there.
Right.
But she was like, I'm not charging you for this visit. And she goes, I'm like, well, thank you very much. So we started talking a little bit. I was like, well, they told me they asked for this medication, and I forget what the medication was. And she was like, we only give that medication if, like, somebody's like, their oxygen level is really low or they're having trouble breathing. It's like, but my oxygen was at 97, and other than I just felt like crap. She was like, yeah, no. And she goes, I could do a chest x-ray on you, but she listened to me. She goes, your lungs are clear. She goes, I don't hear any wheezing or whatnot, so you're fine. She goes, yeah, I am not charging you for this visit. I was like, bet, thank you very much. And out the door I went. So anyway, I was surprised, not surprised by, I think it was like Wednesday, Thursday. I took another, test and it came up negative, but I just wasn't comfortable.
Yeah.
I wasn't comfortable coming, I was like, all right, yeah, even though this is negative, I don't know if I'm really comfortable about.
Well, yeah, we just have to be careful.
Well, I mean,
And,
it was funny because, like,
And I had no time to find a guest in that short period of time, which is fine. I don't mind having the day off every once in a while.
But I thought it was cute because, John was like, it doesn't scare me,
Well, until it got closer to taping, and then it was like, we can't wait.
Yeah, because my thing was like, all right, well, this doesn't scare you. I said, well, it doesn't scare me. I mean, I'm over it, per se. But, long story short, I was not comfortable, even though it was negative and like that. I was not comfortable being in the studio. So.
Well, and two, we have, we want to kind of go back to,
to that point.
To thank Area 52 Media Group, and specifically Cage is behind the technical part today.
It's on the board today.
And he didn't want to do it either. So
no, I mean, when I got the text message
that
said,
I don't think so.
Cage said no. I was like, I have to admit, when I saw the text that said Cage said no, I was like, you go, Cage. Like, you tell him. Because, again, I wasn't comfortable. To me, it wasn't, I don't think it would have been fair to bring everybody in the studio for that.
Well, we're just glad you're all better.
Yes, me too.
Glad you're all better. And again, we want to thank Area 52 Media Group because we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. And we need to thank our other sponsor too, DeLynn Gaston with the mortgage firm. She's always very supportive. She has been so supportive of me, even personally, from the very beginning. It's over 7 years now going back. Her and the whole family. So support the mortgage firm. We get a lot of things on social media in some of these groups that we're in, and everybody, people are like, "Oh, I'm a first-time buyer. Who do you recommend?" Blah blah blah. She has so much experience that she can help people that are first-time buyers, second mortgages, if you've done it before, or if you need help getting your credit squared away before you even buy a home. Because it's really important, especially these days, to have all that stuff in place prior to even going looking for a home. And she's the gal to help you out, and I always recommend.
Oh yeah, and I think for me, when we look at people who who sponsor the show and whatnot, and her specifically, is she's more than just an agency per se supporting the show. I mean like I count her as amongst a very dear friend, and what I like about her business just ethics across the board, is how sweet it is. What I love about her is even if there's times where I would ask her a question, and if she doesn't know the answer, she's not afraid to say, you know what, let me get back to you on that one. And you must trust and believe she gets back to you.
Yeah.
So.
And it's hard to believe she doesn't know the answer, but things change so much in her industry that I couldn't even imagine. But she is the gal, though.
Yeah, there was something we were talking about one day after we were in a networking meeting together, and I was going through the stuff with my house, getting everything changed from my ex's name into mine, and something I said to her, and she was like. At first she was like, that doesn't sound, she was like, well then, then she was like, I guess it has changed, but, you're right, to hear her say, I don't know the answer to that one, or I didn't know that, it's kind of like, Who are you? What do you know everything.
Yeah, but like I said, with the changes in the industry over the last several years, I couldn't imagine how hard it would be to keep up with everything. Well, you're back today. We're back today,
Right.
and it's kind of a different day. And so I'm kind of going to let you kind of take the lead on this show today, if you can.
Well, I can't.
I think you can. It's maybe a little difficult at times, but you did.
I think I have to take the lead a lot, but no, interesting. Last week, when I was, being out, it's like, okay, we'll just pick everything up next week, and it was funny, as we were, prepping for today, and it was like, today's a little bit of a different day for us in the studio. And I'm, when I say different for us in the studio today, it is different. We have a different taping schedule today than what we typically have. And so as the text messages last week were going back and forth, they were like, hey, we need to do this next week. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And my brain wasn't processing what today was at the moment. And, I was like, okay. And then I don't know whether I had looked at the calendar or something was going on that I happened to look at the calendar. And all I could think of was, holy crud. And I think I immediately, I forget whether I did it in our group, in our show group text, or whether I text you solo, or maybe I did one of both.
I think you did both. Yeah, I don't.
And but I was like, it just dawned on me. Today is Patrick's birthday.
I know. When I saw that text, I was like,
and I'm sitting there thinking to myself that, part of me was like, if there was a day to not being studio, I wondered if, today should have been it. But I got up this morning, or actually as I was prepping for this, and all the while I kept saying, it's Pat's birthday. I'm going to be taping on Pat's birthday. And I remember, there was a little small piece of me that was watching the two group texts between us, and I was waiting for either you or John to say, we're not taping. Like, we're canceling taping. But which is interesting because the flip side of it, anybody that knows our producer would be like, you don't cancel shows. Like, we're not canceling shows. And of course,
he's the only one that can cancel shows.
Yeah, I know. So I was like, you can't cancel a show. And I was like, wait, didn't you cancel us? Did you cancel us last week? Yeah, but anyway, I mean, and I understand. There are times where shows do get canceled, or we do cancel taping. But at the same time, as I was like, let's not tape. Maybe we shouldn't tape. Like, am I going to be able to tape? Because we sit back and we think about what we've talked about over the last 2 years.
2.5 years.
Yeah, 2.5 years.
Yeah.
We were talking about the whole grief process and whatnot. And so when I woke up this morning, I posted something on my page. That was like, he would have been 37 today. And Kate, can we throw up that first picture, please, just for a minute? So I look at this, and this is like one of the, I want to say, not one of the last pictures that we took of him, but, looking at this picture right here, like, that is him. Like, that is his persona. Usually when you see him, it's those aviator shades and that hat. And I found the hat, thanks, Kate. I found that hat actually at Dillard's, and I don't know whether he had stopped by the store. I used to work at Dillard's. It's Daniel Cremu, and he was like, he was in the store, and he would say, "This hat is cool." And to listen to him talk, he was very 70-ish, 80-ish in his verbiage. He was like, "Man, this is cool." He would say things like, "Hey, see that cat over there?" And I was like, "What do you know about cool and cat and all those other things?" it's like, those how we talked in our age. But anyway, that was his, yeah, like I said, that was him, very laid back, very, very suave, very cool. Although some people would, say, I think I could say this on air, your son's an asshole. Okay, if I'm not supposed to say that, forgive me, I don't mean to offend anybody. And I was like, yes, he could be. However, a lot of people that would say, your son is an a-hole, would be like, what I said about him? It is not, and I looked at him and I said, no, it's not that, because we all have that tendency. It's not that he is. It is, he's very fierce in his beliefs. And, I used to comment that he was my fiercest protector. And, so as I'm waking up this morning, and my brain was processing what today is, and I typically, I jokingly tell people being in the mental health field is a double-edged sword. Because there was a time in my life, even still now, that I kind of mastered this ability to what we call compartmentalize. And it's like, okay, you know what, I'm going to put all of the emotion and stuff into this little compartment, and I'm going to close the lid because I need to focus on, functioning, kind of thing. But I think about when, as we've, said, over and over, as we're reviewing, doing our book reviews and just talking in general, how grief is not linear and everything like that. But I'm looking at, okay, so what was I doing? And for some reason, my brain had said like 5 years. It's been on 5 years. I was like, wait a minute, where'd that extra year come from? It's been 4 years. It's actually 4 years, this year. And, but anyway, I was, I posted on, my social media page, you would have been 37 today, and, planning on, what today is, what we're going to do today, or, what's the plan. And without, because I was just like in the moment, I don't know so whether I allowed it or it just happened, but anyway, there was that allowance of, this flood of emotion. And I was like, and I'm like, okay, what's, I usually, not so much I have it together, but it's like, and then I'm telling myself, as I'm grappling between the guilt of, I'm being emotional, with the, all right, look, you're taping today. What do we say when we're here? It's okay to not be okay. It's okay. And I think about when, I'm doing my groups with, participants that are in the groups that I facilitate. Guys, it's okay to have emotions. It's okay to, let yourself feel what you're feeling. And so as I'm having this, and I refer to it as a mini meltdown, I'm looking at my phone and, I would say gotta love her. No, not gotta love her. I choose to love her with every fiber of my being. But Kira, she was like, love you. I'm here today if you need me. And, because I messaged back to her and I was like, love you too. And I was like, don't be surprised if you get a phone call from me later on. But I think about how blessed I am, to have her in my life. And the relationship that she and I have, the relationship that, even as a blended family, that we have. Because, when I think of, when you think of, former, sons and daughters-in-law, it's not that I ever had a former son-in-law, my daughter will ever get married. But, when I think of, in the case of Kira, she's, legally, my former daughter-in-law, and, she's remarried, people think like, oh, that's a former, do you really have a relationship with her? And I was like, no, yeah, I do. And even though, the guy she's married to now, his name is Nick, loved Nick to death. It's like, would I call Nick my son-in-law? No, not necessarily so. But I remember, the relationship I had with Nick, he was like, it's weird, and I was like, well, what's weird about this? Because I think, I know I'm going down a rabbit hole, but it was one of those things I was like, he didn't think I liked him. And I'm like, no, I never disliked you. Like, you used to be my, you and my son were best friends once, The friendship is a little different now. But he was like, it was just weird being married to your, a woman who was married to your son. And I was like, that's between y'all. And I think, in the grand scheme of things, Nick and Kira being together, that is the relationship that was supposed to be together. And I was like, people was like, how do you say that? I'm like, no, I mean, relationships happen, they don't work out, and then everybody ends up with who they're supposed to be with. And, Kira and Nick being together, that was, they were meant to be together. And, I mean, that was a solid relationship, and I love them both.
I think people just say that because that's not the typical, relationship. Usually that's more strained when there's, separations and divorces and everything else, instead of the way your family tends to, everybody blends in together and makes it work,
And that is true.
But and you got the grandkids, so
there is that. But and I look at in terms of in-laws, like I'm we know I'm divorced, and what's funny is I have a tremendous loving relationship with my in-laws. No relationship. Zero with my ex, but with his family, we are still, like they still refer to me as their sister or sister-in-law. Yeah, like we like you because you're you, not because you were married to him.
Right.
It's like, okay. Anyway, let me come out of that rabbit hole. But I, again, having people, come out with with the I'm here for you. We know today is going to be rough. I was talking to my daughter this morning. She's, told her job, June 16th, I ain't working this. Right. Don't even plan on me being here. It's just not happening.
Right.
I talked to Carl. Actually, I was on the phone with Carl as I was walking into the studio. But, traditionally, we have, what do we do to celebrate him? And, the very last birthday celebration that we had with him was a barbecue, and he was like, that was the best party he ever had. So that's the plan for today. But, enough of that. I want to focus a little bit on something that, after he was gone, and, we were going through his stuff, and I was, putting his service together, which no parent should have to. I mean, it's hard enough for anybody to put together a service for a loved one, but having to put together a service for people or for loved ones that were lost in the manner that we lost our respective loved ones, it's like, this is not something that I wanted to do. However, again, thank God my nephew was with me at the time and helped me put this together. Kate, can we get asset number 2, please? So I'm looking at this, and I found in Patrick's things where he was a prolific writer. And if you have a hard time seeing it just because of the coloring, but it says, life is nothing more than a series of moments. It's up to you to capture and do as much as you can with them. Let me start again. It's up to you to capture and do as much as you can with the few and far between good ones. That way, when a bad moment presents itself, you can call up your most recent good moment and stand secure in the fact that an opportunity for something good will come again. Now, glasses. When I saw this, I was like, I was always amazed on, how he wrote and some of the things that came out of his mind.
Had you seen this prior to?
No.
Okay.
This one I had not seen before. Like, I've seen his writings before. Like, he would write something and, he would bring it to me and like, hey, Mom, read this. Or, more to point, there were times when I would, be putting together like presentations for work or, stuff in general, and I'd be like, I need a good way to put this together. Like I need a good name. How do I want to say this? And I would look to him, Pat, help me with this, and I was like, because how his, where these thoughts came from was like, OMG. And I told myself, I was given a challenge. Now, mind you, I haven't, lived up to the challenge, or I haven't met the challenge, but not that I don't want to. It's just, I'm gonna look at it and say I typically drop the ball. But one of our prior guests, Rod Cunningham, gave me a challenge a year or so ago that said, so when's the book coming out? And I was like, book? And he was like, yeah, I challenge you, 6 months to have a book out. And I thought about it, and I was like, challenge accepted. But then it's never got myself. I was like, okay, I really need to start on this book. And I would have things in my head, and of course, when I'm in a car, and then these thoughts come up. But then when I get home, it's like, I remember what I said in the car, or I remember I said something in the car, but I can't remember what I said. Or I'll say something to somebody, and they'll be like, that was really neat. Can you say that again? And I was like, what did I just say? Where he was very skilled, gifted at pulling things, like this, just out of the air. But that one, I found to be one of the ones that I cherished the most. I took that particular picture. A good friend of his, I can't think what her real name is, Mahal, I think it is, or Mahal. We call her Ling Ling. But his good friend Ling, she actually made that picture. And so I took that picture and I blew it up into poster size, and I have that on my desk at work, as a poster in front. Because I think those words fit, what, not only the theme of this show, but just life in general. In that, there are times throughout life that we experience negative stuff. And all too often we tend to get stuck in the negative stuff. And not have the ability to move past it. And so as I'm reading this, it was like, I looked at that as, this, for us, when we like, that's a little hokey, that it shines its light on the hope and the realization that, yep, life sucks right now, but if I think to this good moment over here, you know what, this is going to pass. And I think, the other thing with that particular saying is, for me, it's, as his mom, but I would say more the mental health, the therapist side of me, looked at that, and it was like a glaring, like neon light of where he was, depressive was, with where the depression was. Because what he said is those few and far between good ones. And so I think when he wrote that particular poem, was during one of his dark times. But let me see the next essay, Kate. So this one, he was, I think with this one, he was getting ready for an interview. And I remember when he bought this outfit, he would went in and he would take a picture, and then he would come, out, and he had this thing where he would stroke his goatee, and he was like, "This is what's up. This is what's up." Or there was a, I don't think I would air it, just because there was, a couple of curse word in it. His thing was he was all about his bathrobes. I think I talked about this, these robes. And, but with his goatee, he was like, I just looked at my last Go Live feed, and this beard is crucial. I still need a cut, though. But this beard is right. And again, as I'm looking at him, and I would just have to shake my head. And, for someone who recognized and embraced his self-confidence, was like self-confidence way up here, but oftentimes self-esteem was way down here. And reconciling, the self-confidence and the fact that he recognized what a good person he was, what a decent human, especially when it came to relationships. Like he would tell me, Mom, he was like, I don't understand, like women would kill to be with a guy like me, and I'm sitting back, because I'm biased, as his mom. At the same time, I'm looking at this and I was like, if you weren't my son, how he approached relationships is like, I said, your son, you're right. You are the type of guy that I would want my daughter to date, I was like, no, he's not dating his sister. His dad was from Arkansas, not me. Oh, I said that. I'm sorry, folks. No disrespect. But seriously, because he, extremely loyal. And I asked him one time, if he would, be on the show. But the friend Rob, who, says, if it hadn't been Patrick, it would have been him. But Rob was talking about how there was a time when Rob had, and I have permission to share this. Rob is very, he shares, his own sobriety, addiction, / sobriety story. But he talked about how, one day he had suggested to Patrick, having relations with his wife, and Patrick went into orbit with him. Like, you're joking me. And he's basically like, read Rob out, like, you need to have more respect for your woman than this. And to Rob, he's like, being in that lifestyle, he said he was taken aback by this because he was like other people, and his wife, she's very, she's beautiful, beautiful woman, a very sweet person, beautiful inside and out. But he was like, it's strange how other people would have like jumped at this opportunity to, relationship with his wife. And he was like, he was in the lifestyle, and it was kind of like that was kind of commonplace.
Right.
But he was like, for Patrick to say, how could you not respect your woman like this? And I'm like, that's my son. Mm-hmm. That's my son. And Rob said it forced him to, look at, my God, he's right. How could I treat my wife like? Now, whether or not he'd ever done that before, I don't know. However, I look at what has transpired from, the day, the few days, that's like a month or so, after Pat was gone, when Rob came to my door to explain what his relationship was, that he was like, so much about his life has changed. And he credits, Patrick's loss, to his sobriety. So let's get our next asset. So this one was one of a trip that we took. It was my birthday, and in that you have Carl, the woman with him was girl he was dating at the time, CJ. Love CJ. Still have a relationship with CJ today. Love her, love her, love her. Then there's Patrick, my daughter Jean, myself, and then the guy on to our right. So it'll be the left side of the photo. That is one of my longtime dear best friends, Mark. And Mark worked at Disney at the time, and he was like, hey, for your birthday, let's go and celebrate at Disney. And so this was just the six of us hanging out, having a good time. And I remember at this particular trip, Patrick, Jean, and I must have rode the Terror Tower at Universal, not Universal. It's at Disney. Is it Epcot? But anyway, Hollywood Terror Towers.
Yeah.
We must have rode that ride like 12 times. Like, we would get off of it, go in, get on again, and Mark was like, I've been on this ride so many times I can't stand it. And he was like, he would tell us that's I want to say 13, I might be exaggerating, but 13 different drop sequences. So of course we were like, well, I want to see, we're going to do every drop, so because every drop sequence that they have, and so we would jump off, run around, get on it again. This is
No,
really
thank
cool.
you.
Oh yeah, no, we loved it. We loved it.
That's too much for me.
We loved it. Let's pop our next one. Somewhere in there is another picture. There it is. So this photo, I was stationed at Fort Riley. This was a picture of me and my little family. Patrick was probably like 6 months old, and as I'm taking this picture, I'm grinning, and I don't know if you could see, he has his thumbnail and he's digging it, and he's just little kid just like doing like this to my hand, and I'm like, okay. And at one point I have another picture where I was trying to sit him down for a second, and his thing was like, oh, no, Mom, I need to be on your lap. So this is one where I had him grinning, and after a while he was just not feeling pictures anymore.
It's hard to get kids at that age.
Yeah,
too.
no, he loved it. Let's do our next one.
The family again a little bit
The
older.
family getting a little older. Yeah, this one I want to say Patrick was about 5-ish in this picture, and right before we took this picture, or after we took this picture, we were going out to lunch, and there was a restaurant, it's Golden Corral, as a matter of fact. We would, the kids and I would go like, every other week. It's like, oh, let's go to lunch, let's go to Golden Corral. But there was a waitress, a server, her name was Paula, who called Patrick her husband. Patrick was her husband.
At 5 years old.
At 5 years old, that was her husband. Yes. He had, these, his eyelashes were, he had these killer eyelashes, and so we'd come in, and he's sitting down, and she, the first time we ever went, she walks over and she's like, oh my God, he is so gorgeous and whatnot. She was like, you're going to be my husband. And, of course, I know it wasn't anything.
Right.
Some people that would be like, is that little perverted? I was like, no, guys. Back when you could say things like that,
Yeah.
people didn't get offended. But, so of course, whenever, we were like, all right, guys, where we're going to go eat at, Patrick would always be like, I want to go see Paula. And I was like, okay. He was like, I need to go see my wife. And it was so cute. So we would go in, and I think she was, she finally, when she left Golden Corral, she wasn't a server anymore. She was like, I'm leaving. He was devastated. Another friend of ours, she would send cards. Now, Patrick, at 5, he probably had like 5 or 6 wives. These women who, friends of mine, or people that we were acquainted with. That was like, no, he's my husband. And like one friend, she would write me letters. She was like, I was like in love to my husband, and it was those eyelashes. Next one, please. So this is in my neighborhood right out. It's actually taken in my driveway. I forget what the occasion was, but Carl was visiting us at the time, and so you have Carl, and of course there's Patrick. The young lady sitting on the bumper is my niece Racine, and then my daughter, and like these 4 together. Was, like, you never knew what you were going to get. Actually, I know what this one was. It was my birthday, and the 4 of them had been like conspiring for like a month that Carl was going to come in and surprise me for my birthday. And I remember that morning, I wake up. It was like 2 a.m. when he got in, and. My light was on in my bedroom, and I'm looking up, and I'm, looking at these 2 faces, standing above me, like, hey, Mom. And I didn't have my glasses on. It's like, okay, am I seeing double? But, like, I was, in like kind of a dead sleep.
Right.
I'm waking up, and I'm like, what the heck?
What do I see? Am I awake?
And so what it was Carl, stop. I think I said something, and she thinks I'm talking to her. So it was like Carl was standing in front, and Pat was standing behind him. And, you know, to see the two boys together, they looked almost like twins. You know, I used to tell people, if you change their weight by 40 pounds, like add 40 to Patrick or take 40 off of Carl, my boys could almost be twins. Mm-hmm. But anyway, you know, I just hear Carl say, "Happy birthday, Mama." And, you know, finally, you know, when the grog and the fog, you know, wore off, I was like, oh my gosh, you know, of course they're cracking up because the two main culprits actually, you know, the four of them, you know, the culprits in this, and, you know, Patrick had the job of getting Carl, you know, to the house. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like, oh my goodness, it's my kid. Next. This was Patrick's first comedy gig that he did. We were at Side Splitters in Tampa, where he was on stage for the first time.
Oh, how cool!
And I have that set, and you know that was his dream. He was funniest. I mean, you know, funniest guy. Sense of humor was off the chain, and like I said, that was his first gig. Next one. This is one of my favorite photos. This was taken, I want to say it was, no, they were here. Or no, they were back in Kansas for a visit. And Patrick took this picture, and he entitled it "The Twin Towers." And, you know, of course, that's the shadow, you know, it was him and Devin. You know, and people would always, you know, comment whenever you saw Pat, unless he was at work. If you saw Patrick, you saw Devin. And, you know, at one point there was a, you know, kind of a custody battle thingy going on between Devin's mom and him. And, yeah, again, and I don't disparage Dev's mom because I love her to death. I mean, I do love her, you know, and her family. But I shouldn't say but. I love her. I do love her. When it was like the Leavenworth police, you know, someone had said he'd kidnapped Devin, and they were like, "What? Like, first of all, you can't kidnap your own. Can you kidnap your own kid?" However, you know, the police, you know, stepped in and were like, "Negative. When you see him, he always has that boy with him." So no, he's, you know, and it's like, no, it was, and I forget, I don't think it was his mom that started it, you know, somebody else. But anyway, you know, it was, "No, guys, you're mistaken. You know, Patrick is the one that has custody of him." And I'm like, okay, no, next one. So, you know, speaking of, this was taken actually the summer before we lost him. That is Carmen, that's Devin's mom. She had come in, you know, for one of the two visits while they were, you know, since Devin's been here. You know, Patrick's hope during this visit was to convince her to move from Kansas to here. You know, and he was like, "Mom, I just want my family back together." Yeah, because he loved her, and like after he was gone, you know. He actually spent a lot of time with her when we were in Kansas the week before we lost him, because, you know, we got back from Kansas on the 7th. I was looking at my phone today, like the very last picture I took of him was on August 7th, and he was gone 4 days later. Next one. So this is Naeem and Nyla. This is Devin's siblings. His middle son and his only girl. You know, and unfortunately, you know, with Patrick's loss, I don't know if we'll ever see. You know, they'll you know, be adults, or they'll probably end up being adults before I see them again. And I think it's, you know, it's a shame that, you know, Devin will, you know, does not have a relationship with his siblings, with his dad being gone. But we miss them. You know, losing people and the dynamic that it takes, the changes amongst families, and with his two siblings, which is strange, because their mom, at one time, especially when I was concerned, would be like, I'm comfortable with the kids coming over if you're at home. And I was like, and it was, that dynamic that, she and Pat had, and I understood, it's like, I tried not to get in the middle of it. But anyway, it was, if you're home, I'm comfortable, so if you're going to be home, the kids would come over. And there was a couple of times where Nye would come and he would spend like the entire weekend with me, and it was so cute, because I had to prep him like several hours in advance when his mom was coming to get him. Because I remember one time he was visiting, and I was like, Mom is coming. I said, Mom's coming to pick you up. I said, it's time for you to go home. And he got this look on his face, and he was like, Anna, I can't go home. And I'm like, he goes, no, I can't go home. And I was like, but Nye, it's like I said, he was with me the entire weekend. I was like,
Right.
I can't go home. And his mom would come and get him, and he would, oh my God, throw a fit. And of course, as Nana, I'm like, oh. So his mom and I, we would do this thing where she would call me, and so it was like, okay, this is what time we're going to pick him up, and we had to prep him, to when Mom gets here. It's, you have to go home with her, but you can come back, and we got it was like I said, nothing negative concerns. So he loved the idea of spending time with Nana. I don't want to go home, but then eventually he would get in the car and he would go home with his mom.
Right.
And, everything was good, but Tisha and I would have to do this thing because she'd call me. She's like, "Can you please prep my son and let him know that I'm coming to get him?" And I was like, and we're like, yeah. And so when he got there, I was like, okay, so remember, me and Mommy talked to you and said, it's time to go home, and she's going to bring you back whenever the
Right.
next trip was. And he was like, okay, but it was so funny because we would look at each other and it was like, so when we prep him an hour, a couple hours beforehand, and say, your mom's coming to get you, he was fine. But if we did not prep him, I can't go home. It's almost like he was, I know what it is, I'm not ready to go home,
Right.
kind of thing. And then I think we're up to our last asset for this. So this was, again, shortly after Patrick and Devin moved to Florida. Devin, was about a year old. It's like they moved here when Dev was a year. And, this is another one of those pictures that I absolutely love, I love because, it shows the bond and the love that, Devin and his dad had between them. Interestingly, as I was getting ready for, today's shows, I think, you guys were indulging, this trip down memory lane, this, dedication of, this show to Pat, on his birthday. As I was getting ready for the show, like last night, we're having this conversation with, Dev, and I'm like, tomorrow's Daddy's birthday. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, so, what do we want to do? And, right now I've got like 5 of the grandkids, been, with me the last, 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Summertime at Nana's, and, I've been off work. But my one granddaughter, I get the ages mixed up. I think she's 11. Is she 11? She might be 12. No, she's 11. I was like, what do we do? And, she's like, we can go put flowers. I'm going to go and put flowers on his grave. And I looked at her and I thought, oh my God, that was so sweet. But I had to tell her, Lele, Uncle Pat's right up there. And I was like, that is so sweet. And I said, but there is no graveyard. And it's like, Uncle Pat's right up there. And I don't think she processed or realized that. And I said, Devin and I decided we were bringing Daddy, bringing his dad home, bringing him back home. And I said, see the box with the picture? And she said, yeah. And I was like, no, Uncle Pat's in that box. And she, oh, okay.
Yeah, explaining that to an 11-year-old.
But anyway, I asked Dev, I said, how how would you feel about coming on the show? And he was like, no. He was like, I can't do that. And I looked at him, and, part of it with him is he's accepted, and acknowledges that his dad is gone. He's just not able to talk about it. He just says,
well, he's kind of like at that delicate age though too, isn't? What is he, like 13?
He's 13.
13.
And
then too, and I'm just thinking, okay, today is his dad's birthday, which is going to happen every year. Father's Day is 2 days later.
Well, and I mean, even beyond, and in, the fact that, he's in those, those teenage years, hormones are raging and everything like that. I think what it is for him, the fact that, he knows his dad is gone, for him to talk about it, or not talking about it is like a protective factor for him, because to talk about it, it rips the bandage off again. It like rips the scab open and it's raw, because it's that reminder. Wow, my dad is not here. And unfortunately, for Dev, with his father's loss, was not only did he lost his dad. His mom is not I hate to say she's not a part of his life. They talk. He has a relationship with her, per se. At the same time, it's a unique relationship because he's told his mom, I'm having Nana adopt me. And, his mom is perfectly fine with it. She understands, this is what he wants. And, she was like, I'm fine with it as long as, I will always, I'll be a part of your life. Right. And I told her, and recently his uncle, her brother, has reached out to me. Is it okay if I communicate with Devin? I was like, I would never stop you guys. Right. But I respect her brother because, what he said to me was, it would be, what's the word he used? Uncivilized. He goes, it would be uncivilized for me not to ask permission. And I respected, where he was coming from. And he was like, I respect you immensely. And he goes, do you remember how Patrick and I became friends? And his name was Jesus. Patrick was the first friend that Patrick was the first friend that Jesus had when he moved to Leavenworth. They were in elementary school together. Oh, wow. And Patrick had his back when he was had an interest in this girl, and he was like, don't worry about it. You didn't have any interest with the girl. I got your back if someone says something about it. And so they've been best friends for elementary school through the time Patrick left.
Right. Wow.
And so, but yeah, I told him, I was like, no, I would never cut you guys from his life, but this is what he wants.
Well, maybe at some point down the road, Devin might feel comfortable coming on the show and talking. I think it would be cool, if he got to that point that he could do that.
Oh yeah.
I think that would be neat.
Yeah, and then of course, unfortunately, he's lost the relationship with his siblings.
With his siblings too.
I think that's the one that gets him the most. His dad, his mom, and his siblings.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, fortunately for him, you guys have such a huge blended family that he's not out there alone.
No.
And that's, despite everything else, that is amazing.
So let's go to our summer quote. So it says, "And the blueness of the skies and the warmth of the summer, we remember them." And I love this quote as I was looking at what kind of quote do I want to come up with, and I wanted to bring something that not only celebrated this is us losing Patrick, but I thought it was a nice segue into what our next segment is about, because we are going into summertime and, talking about summertime grief, which is going to be our next show.
Our next show, Summertime Grief.
Yeah, with summertime grief. But I like that in that, when I look up and we see the blue skies and, how that calming effect it has on us.
Well, like we talked about it a couple shows ago too, and I had one of those similar because there's a certain time in the springtime here where the skies are just this magical blue. And it was that way when Bobby passed away. And it just reminds me of his gorgeous blue eyes. And whenever I see that color of blue sky, it's just like, it's kind of weird, but it's calming.
Yes.
I mean, it is. It's just calming to me when I see that color of sky. And it's a specific color, and there's no clouds in the sky.
And for you, with Bobby's eyes being blue and that color, I look at it as that is him. What it's
Right.
like, I'm still here, babe. I'm
Right.
still with you.
Yeah.
So, let's do the reminder of our lifelines. Please, as we always say, please make sure that we have, you keep these lines very close by. Remember that 988 is a call and a text. You never know when you might, need to reach out, not only for yourself, but for someone. So have these numbers close.
Yeah, put them in your phone so you can easily give them to other people too and get them to put them in their phones.
Exactly.
So-
And we will get to, into it our next segment. We have Art for Hope coming up.
Oh, gosh, I forget. Yeah, Art for Hope, September 7th. We're looking for sponsors. It's going to be a great event, of course, being held at the Hilton Garden Inn, and I forgot to bring a piece of artwork again. But I'm going to start bringing in some artwork, and we'll start posting it on both the show and the foundation and the Art for Hope. Art for Hope has its own Facebook page, too.
Well, thank you for, celebrating Patrick's birthday with us. And as we close out all the time,
Remember, there's always
hope.
hope. Thank you.